Senator Milne.
Mr Chair, I am standing today to discuss the opposition's amendment to effectively move to flexible pricing of an emissions trading scheme and do so as soon as possible. The Greens are going to support this amendment. Now, I want to explain to the Senate why that is. The first thing is we have an emissions trading scheme in legislation already. That is why it is possible to change dates and so on, as this amendment suggests. We have one now. Unfortunately, Australians thought that we had a tax, and unfortunately that is because the coalition told that lie for long enough, and the former Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, on a television program conceded something she should never have conceded, and that is that it was a tax. It never was a tax, it was a fixed price. However, we should have been able to go to flexible pricing on the 1st of July next year. But since it is quite clear that the numbers no longer exist for transitioning from a fixed price to a flexible price next year, we have had since then the Palmer United Party say they support an emissions trading scheme. We had Mr Palmer stand up with Al Gore and say he supports an emissions trading scheme. Well, we've got one. And so this is really to test whether the Palmer United Party is actually committed to emissions trading or not, because we have got a scheme, it is in the law, and if we were to vote for this amendment now, it means we would abandon the fixed price and transition immediately to a flexible price. That is possible. We could do it. It means it would go from a $25 price, $25.40, to around about Australian $8, which is the European price, because we are currently linked to the European Union scheme. Now, Mr Palmer said he supported emissions trading. The Palmer United Party support emissions trading. They support linking to our trading partners. And this will really test whether that is fact or fiction, whether they support it or not, because if you don't support this, then you don't support an emissions trading scheme now. You only support it as a notional view sometime into the future, and that is giving up an effective carbon framework of legislation now for something which may or may not ever happen into the future. And given that the Abbott government has said they would never accept an emissions trading scheme or a carbon tax, if indeed it was a tax to be introduced, that means that it won't happen. So this is the opportunity for the Palmer United Party to now join and to deliver on what Mr Palmer told Al Gore he said he believed in, and that is an emissions trading scheme. Because what happened on the 31st of May this year, the default setting kicked in. The default setting kicked in, meaning we now have in Australia a target of around 18% emissions reduction. That is what effectively the Climate Change Authority recommended in their report in February, and that is what has changed in recent times. If we were to now move to allow that emissions trading scheme to operate as a flexible price now, we would have the 18% cap as the default cap, and we would have an $8, around about an $8, depending on what the European Union price is at any time, we would have an $8 price. Now, if the Palmer United Party would support that, it means we have an effective, legislated emissions trading scheme going immediately from a fixed price to a flexible price, reducing the carbon price from $25 to $8. Now, I don't like doing that because I want an effective carbon price in Australia, and we need a price that will drive transformation. That is why, if you're serious about bringing down emissions, you need to maintain the price, if not make it higher. But we have now got to the point where we either keep the scheme or we don't. And that is why I am calling on the Palmer United Party to now actually put legislation where their mouth has been in terms of the stand-up with Al Gore and Mr Palmer in this parliament only a fortnight or so ago, and that is the opportunity. It would effectively mean an end to a fixed price, immediate flexible pricing. I've taken advice on that, and it could be done very fast. There is a cap in place. Previously, we had no cap in place. We had no cap in place, and we only had the default, but it didn't kick in until the 31st of May. Now it has kicked in. Everything is ready to go. Everything is ready to go. It would only take us a week or two at the longest to make this happen. And so I am calling on the Palmer United Party today to explain, if they believe in emissions trading, why would you not do this and actually support this amendment and make it happen? On another matter, we've got ARENA to be considered here today, the Australian Renewable Energy Agency. Now, the Greens want to keep the Renewable Energy Agency. We were part of setting it up through the Clean Energy Package. It's a statutory authority, and it is supporting early research and development in Australia in renewable energy and energy efficiency technologies. It's doing a fantastic job, together with the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, in supporting the early research and development projects. And for the benefit of the Senate, already, for $673 million contribution from ARENA, we have supported a total project value of $2 billion. And in terms of the number of projects, 186 projects around the country have been supported. And in terms of the pipeline of consideration that's going to be given, there are 152 projects in the pipeline, with 26 million being sought from ARENA, but $5.6 billion in total investment for those projects. It would make no sense whatsoever for what the government is trying to do, which is gut ARENA. They're trying to do it before the legislation to abolish ARENA comes through the House, because what they are doing here is trying to remove the funding from ARENA, and that is what the government is doing in this schedule. And that's why we should be getting rid of Schedule 5 of the legislation, so that ARENA can continue. And on the subject of ARENA, I have written to the minister, and I would seek the support of the Senate in making sure that the government does not proceed with winding up ARENA effectively. 2 of the board members lost their position on the 30th of June, and the final 2 are to go on the 15th of July. So before we've even had the legislation, the government is going to allow the people who know what's going on with all these projects, these 186 projects that have already been approved. They are the ones that especially need to be looked at, and we need to keep the existing expertise. So we need to keep not only the money for ARENA, but the minister needs to make sure that the term of those existing personnel be extended until the parliament determines the future of ARENA. And when it gets to, I will be interested to hear with specifics from the Palmer United Party about their particular amendment, and I'll get to specific questions on that in a moment. But the main point here today is to say we have an emissions trading scheme. It is operating. It can go to flexible pricing with a target of 18% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2020, and it can drop the price. I don't like that, but nevertheless, that's the effect it would be. It would go from $25 to $8, and I put to the Palmer United Party, are you serious about keeping an emissions trading scheme, or is the amendment to the Clean Energy Act just cover, putting off at some time into the future, which is in fact what the Abbott government argues, that at the point when the rest of the world acts and they will determine when that is, and it's never. Are we just seeing that being put off until next week to give cover to voting down the only effective policy framework for bringing down emissions we've got in Australia, and it is the legislation that is here before us? So I want to put very firmly on the record, this is the opportunity for the Palmer United Party to show once and for all, since Al Gore has put himself on the line around the world in relation to support for emissions trading. Let's see it.